And now, ladies and gentlemen,
Put your thumbs up and say it's Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo, Tickety Boo, everything's Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo, son. Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo.
Welcome to Tickety Boo, the podcast with unscripted conversations from people who've lived it. Where myself, Andy Griffiths, along with Iona Russell and Ian Young. We're three working therapists, but more than that, we're three humans trying to make sense of life just like everyone else. In our chats, we explore the mess and magic of being human. In each episode, we talk honestly about our own experiences with mental health, relationships, fear, growth, all the stuff that we don't always say out loud. We're certainly not here to fix you. We're here to make you feel less alone and maybe give you a few things to think about along the way. And in today's episode, today we're asking, is it too late to start again? Or is the life you really wanted just stuck behind bills, kids, mortgages, or some dodgy decisions you made back in your 20s? Interesting one, this. I think most of us would say we don't hate our lives. Certainly, or hate's a strong word, but we wonder if it was meant to be like this. Are we where we're supposed to be? Because at times life can feel flat for a lot of people. Unmet needs or whatever it may be. But I think, it's to open up this conversation. Why is it we end up in these places where we feel like, I'm not where I should be, but my time has passed and I can't make the change now?
I would say that they've been stuck in the shoulds. They're, with the experience of the clients that I've worked with, whether they've built their own career and they're entrepreneurs or whether they're sort of at the high level within whatever their industry is this it? Is this all there is? Because a lot of people have gone down a path of they made a decision what they were going to study in school, or they've made some choice that they made in their 20s and they're following through and it's the next step. And I think for a lot of people, if we look at where a lot of people panic, where it used to be the midlife crisis, it's classic. Because of the age bracket of the people I work with, it's definitely like, for me, I say it's never too late, and I've done it. I've reinvented myself a number of times. It's also, as I've shared, I've experienced a lot of loss over the last couple of years, and so that's really made me help evaluate and be really proactive. Okay, what is it I want to do with these last couple of decades? And I think for a lot of people who might feel flat, is it's not that they necessarily need to be having a job or career that lights them up. That's great if you can. Sometimes people just have to do the job so that they can do the things that light them up on the weekend and stuff. So I'm not going to tell everybody quit your job and go and start your own business. But I think it's the idea that it's too late. It's never too late.
What about you?
Well, I will say, generally, I'm absolutely over the moon with my life. I love my life. I'm very blessed. I've engineered the life that I wanted for myself and my family. There's obviously things that I would change. Yeah. But a lot of that has been based on starting again at some point, having to sort of configure what I thought, how I thought, because
reinvent things.
Yeah, absolutely. I've made lots of decisions that maybe weren't the best decisions, but they've come with incredible learnings and some wonderful experiences.
But do we feel that, I don't want to cut you off there, Ian, but do we feel like Ian is quite rare in that percentage wise? There's not that many people who are really happy with where their lives are at and the choices they've made and where they find themselves. I'm not saying that is the case, but certainly, obviously, people come into therapy, they're generally coming in because they're struggling with something, and when you're struggling with something, life doesn't feel good anyway. But generally, do we think the percentage of people that aren't happy with their lives or where it is higher than those that are a bit like Ian?
I would think generally people want, for me, the experience I've had in working with people, it's they reach a point where they're like, hang on, like, what am I doing? Or they've generally lost something like significant. And I did so it could be like some business venture or summer employment like has fallen through, and then they have to reinvent themselves, and it's all part of the process. So like if we think, I wrote it down here, like Vera Wang reinvented herself at age 40, and now she's an amazing world-renowned wedding dress designer. We have Toni Morrison, an amazing author who didn't write her first book until she was 37 or 39 and didn't get recognised for it really until she was 50. Louise Hay started a publishing house at 60. I wrote my first book and it was published when I was 49, and I've since written and contributed to 7 books. I never thought I was ever going to write. And so that's the thing. I think if we keep stumbling forward with the choices that we make so we don't feel trapped, we stretch outside the comfort zone, it's never too late.
The thing is, if we ever actually starting again, or are we just pivoting? Because in me personally, I don't think you ever really start again.
Well, you can't because you've got all the learning from where you've come from.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Exactly. You're never starting from the same position you were before.
Absolutely
but
true.
Sometimes starting again feels like too big of a mess to deal with.
Of course it does. That's because your emotions are kicking in and not your practical mind. So your emotions are fear, attachment, romanticising the situation for what it could have been.
Overwhelm.
Overwhelm. By the time you're thinking about obviously restarting, overwhelm is
well,
huge.
if we feed back into the last episode where we dropped into that lovely metaphor of the train, and you're shoveling coal into the furnace, it feels like a too big a mess because the train's rattling down the rails, and you don't stopping shoving coal and feeding whatever you find yourself in life. It's like, how do I do that? Where do I even start to do that?
Exactly. You just don't know how to start again. It's where do you start?
Where do you start?
It's sticking with the element of fire there. Like I think for a lot of people, they think they have to burn everything down and start again. And what's that going to be like? You know, they've got responsibilities, they've got a mortgage, they've got children. You don't actually have to burn everything down. Also, like the last episode again, I mentioned burnout. So it's interesting that we've got all these flame, this fire in the engine going.
Yeah, and I think, if we stick with the, not being able to stop, or it all feels like a mess, I don't think it's that we regret the choices we've made and where we find ourselves in life. I think we just tend to wonder, when did that moment happen when I felt like I didn't have choices? Where there was no, life has now dictated where I'm at, so there is no choice now. Which is not real, but that's a feeling.
Well, the stories, when you're telling yourself those stories, that's because you're at the point of overwhelm. You've just got so much happening. You just haven't got time to consider yourself, or you feel that you don't.
Yeah, and that's where you wake up and go, is this it? Is this every day up, shoveling coal into the furnace, keep the train rattling down the track? I can't stop shoveling coal because the train will come off the tracks. And then life is not going to be so rosy. So it's not a case of like maybe we've picked the wrong life. It's just we haven't figured out yet what's the thing getting in the way of us changing it.
Yeah.
Usually it's ourselves.
Oh.
And our thinking about
fear.
We can't change it. Again, it's the fear. It's the thing that holds us back. And we don't even want to, the idea that we can change direction or pivot, or it is scary for a lot of people. And then also for those of us who've done it a number of times again, it's like, I can just do it again. So it seems like it's easy breezy for those of us who have reinvented themselves a number of times. It's just as scary each time, but you get to prove to yourself you've done it. Whether our listeners have walked away from a relationship which they knew wasn't healthy for them, whether they changed jobs, it's in small increments where people have made those changes, and they can look to that for support when they're feeling that fear. So it doesn't always have to be the big, huge life-changing thing that we think it maybe has to be in order for us to, for lack of a better word, start all over again.
Well, exactly. And I mean, sometimes people need to actually stop and think to themselves, what will happen if I make this change? What are the actual practical outcome of me not doing this?
Yeah.
Well, this person might walk away. Well, this is the person that's creating me the stress, or I might, they might not want to keep me in the job or whatever. But this constant cycle of overthinking and saying that I can't do it, what it does is it robs you of the opportunities that are present.
But that's where FOMO kicks in. Yeah. But also the story off the back of it is I'm too old, I'm too poor, I'm too stuck in the situation, I can't change. And now in some cases these are real things. You know, you maybe feel that you're too old or you're trapped in a situation you can't get through. But people are too dragged into the things they think they have to do.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
On what I can't do and why I can't do it, and the likes of me never do. So it's that, you know, what we focus on is what flourishes.
Yeah.
And if it's all the can'ts and I won't and I'm too this, like that is the thing. Well, yeah, then that's going to be exaggerated and magnified because that's the thing we're focused on. Where, what if we think, well, what can I do?
Too late, too old, too, you know, whatever it is very often code for I'm scared and I'm afraid it won't work and I'll look stupid.
Oh, exactly. But if you're running that in a narrative, that's exactly what you're thinking. It's self-limiting beliefs.
And that too old and all those two things, those are actually external narratives. Like internally, like what is the truth? Like that too old, whereas depending on the culture you go to, like the elderly are revered and we go to them for wisdom. In our culture, like we don't. You know, so we have this like use by date, quite frankly.
So what we've really got to do is get under the bonnet and get into the story that's sat.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we're constantly telling ourselves stories and living by the narrative of the story. And a lot of people aren't really aware of their story. They don't stop for long enough to go, what is my story? What is it that I'm actually telling myself will happen?
And the stories are we're just making them up.
Yeah,
unconsciously.
We are, you know, if I stop doing this, I'll not have money, then I'll have nowhere to live, and then I'll have no friends, and you know, it's that story. Now, some elements of the story are like markers to sort of say, be careful, but they're not like the last page chapter of this is what happens in the story. And for me, you know, my story was, if I stop, if I say no, I will start slipping backwards. I'll regress and my success will go with it, which will then impact my choices in life, my finances. So therefore, keep going. Don't stop. Don't stop doing the thing that's making you miserable because all of that will happen.
Yeah.
Which is a fallacy. It's not the reality.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes less is actually more.
And also there's so much magic hidden in those things which we don't expect. I was just reading this morning before I came in, I can't remember the details, but this woman in COVID town, just in her COVID times in her small town, wherever she lives in America, started delivering homemade lasagnas to families in need, who, you know, because people couldn't leave and all that. Anyway, it's grown over the course since like 2020. I can't remember, it was like 80,000 other people have set up these proactive service-based volunteer to better their society, better their environments they do, and to be supportive. And so much joy and meaning and purpose comes from acts of service, acts of gratitude, being thankful. And that just started with one woman. She didn't have a big intention, started doing something that she wanted to do. And what an amazing pivot, reinvention that is. Now she's the one who started that ripple effect, without thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I want to set up like 80,000 other cities doing this too.
Yeah, I was going to...
Go on.
Oh,
I could hear your cogwheels going as Iona was talking.
you need a piece of paper so you can write down your little thoughts.
Well, I was thinking just how many times I've reinvented myself over the years or started again. I mean, a lot of the reasons that I stayed in situations that I shouldn't have. One was my addiction to certainty. Other one was just general fear, what you were telling yourself. But then I look back at how many times we have reinvented ourselves without even realising. Like in your 20s, you're focused on status, ambition, trying to get a home, trying to start a family. And
that's for those of us who are more linear. I was just focused on partying.
But that's social exposure. That's an important part of it. 30s, you've got your career maybe, and then you've got your head down trying to, juggle all these different things, and then you get the best bit for me personally, which is your 40s. Some people might call it a crisis, but I think about life from a different perspective, which is mortality, and I realise that it's not infinite. We're only here for so long.
There's
and
more
it's the journey.
behind you.
So you know, I'm approaching 50 now, and I know that the things of like the ambition. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy my work and all the rest of it, but we're at the point now where my kids don't need me in the same way. So we're pretty well empty nesting and things like that. So if we don't reinvent ourselves, what is there? So I'm doing it from a different point of view now. It's about deeper connections. It's more focused on me than it ever was on the ambition, the status, you know, the car, trying to get a house and all those things. And that is where I think that I've naturally sort of started again, but in a positive way, because if I hadn't restarted, I'd have been left behind and my life would be very, very empty.
But I think, but for so many people, and you know, certainly those listening to this episode, they feel stuck. They feel stuck in the life that they find themselves in. And I think something that's really useful is to realise that a lot of that will be coming from how much you feel you've invested into getting into where you are today, and actually by getting yourself unstuck, you're going to let go of all of that investment. But
often we're living by a plan that's been set out by us in our 20s before we knew better, or by somebody else because it was
Our
their
parents.
idea. Exactly. So,
but what's the cost of change? Because it does cost something, doesn't it?
well, yeah, of course it does.
What I mean is, I'm not necessarily talking financial. I'm talking people, situations, things you have, your environment. There's a cost.
Of course, accountability, having to face... And a lot of people don't want to just start again because they don't want to face up to their own part that they've played in the situation that they're in.
Yeah. And I would say, yes, there's loss, but there's so much more to be gained. And that's the thing. Like, do you want to stay feeling that stuckness? Nothing changes. It's not going to cost you relationships or whatever. But then if you change, you're going to end up with new relationships and new environments, new settings, new adventures.
Well, of course, a lot of people that need to reinvent themselves or restart, they're stuck in a box. And this is a box that no longer fits them, or it's somebody else's box. And you imagine coming out the box and that world of opportunity, relationships, and all the rest of it that's possible, so that you'll never see while you're sealed inside that box.
At some kind of level, are we saying to ourselves then that I will start all over again when I'm ready and when it feels comfortable?
It will never happen.
No such thing as being ready.
It's so uncomfortable.
You are never ready.
Do the thing.
And it's never... In fact, actually, if it's comfortable, you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yeah. It's, when you find a new why, you've got to find a new why to find yourself new direction. It's getting over that inertia. Like trying to... Like I keep saying, you can't steer a still ship. So it's about kind of getting your why, figuring out roughly where you want to go and making... that movie, it's not a perfect plan. We figure it out as we go.
Yeah.
But the thing is, when we talk about, starting all over again, we're not talking about selling your house and moving to Bali.
But if that's what you want to do,
but if that's
go and
what
do it. I know people who've done that.
Yeah.
It's not my thing. But
sometimes it's just, I'm starting all over again. I'm choosing myself and I'm choosing not to live from a position of fear.
And some of my starting all over again were forced on me. If you think about divorce, and then I had to emigrate back to the UK, that was forced upon me, and then I had to choose how I was going to process that, how was I going to start again? So sometimes it's forced upon us, sometimes it's a choice. But again, we get to choose how we're going to respond, even if it's forced upon us.
Sometimes it's not failure, it's a plot twist.
Love that.
Definitely.
Plot twist.
Definitely. And looking back and being really honest with myself, I think that some of my fear of change in the past was about probably being outcast and being alone. I'm probably not great at being alone. I'm definitely a pack animal. I like to think I'm a leader, but I'm definitely a pack animal. So I like to be surrounded by people, and sometimes when they're not the right people and you realise you're going to be on your own for a while, that's scary.
Do you think, let me put it another way, hypothetical again, but if you two had to start all over again today, for whatever reason, we don't need to in their narrative, something's happened and you need to start all over again, you've got what you've got, we can't take your skills away from you because they're lived experience, what would you do?
Start again.
Yeah, that means Thanks.
Well, are you looking for specifics?
Yeah. Fundamentally, what would you do? If I said, right, everything you're doing today, that's removed. You've got your skills, you've got your wisdom, you've got your experience, all the lessons that you've learnt in life. What would you do?
I'm going to be horrendously irritating. I'd continue to do what I do, but without the money worries and without some of the regrets. But I actually really quite enjoy what I do because I've enjoyed it. That's quite irritating. And
So
that's
what I've heard in there is I would continue to do what I do, but I'd do it differently.
Yes.
So the bit that's in that differently crack is the bit that needs to be.
What I would do, I'd do more without stressing about things that I can't control.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
trying to second guess people. And that
What
kind of
would
thing.
you do?
It comes back to that question, what would you do if you knew you were 100% safe? That, if you could just do anything, I think I would look into areas that I'm passionate about and go and talk in them and work on them, so whether it's suicide and mental health. So again, very similar to what I'm doing, working with in businesses and entrepreneurs, because that excites me. And it sounds very varied, but it's to have that impact. And I think that's we as humans, we're here, we want to have an impact. We want to leave meaning. We want to have that living legacy that's no longer about what do we leave behind us when we go, financially. It's what's the impact we've had on other people? So I would focus even more on people.
I think if I did it, if I was to do it all over again, at the danger of sounding a bit selfish and egotistical, I would do what I wanted to do rather than what I thought other people thought I should be doing. Mm-hmm. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes.
Of course it does.
Fitting into the narrative.
Because everybody wants you to do what will suit them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, when I became a therapist, this, I spent a long time hiding it from the world that I was actually doing it because I was afraid of criticism and not fitting into the mould I'd placed myself into for a long time. So, I would probably do what I do today, but I would have started it much earlier because it's something I wanted to do.
I wonder for a lot of our listeners, that's a key takeaway as well. So it sounds like we would all do something similar but different, to what we're doing.
Yeah.
But it would be we'd do it differently. Coming from Ian, for you would have done it sooner. For me, I would focus really deeply on those projects and causes that I'm passionate about. But we're all, again, still doing what we're already doing. So it's never too late. And as I say, the time to plant a tree is either 50 years ago or now.
And you don't need certainty.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Because there won't be certainty, because there can't be.
Mm-hmm.
Can there?
No, you just need a solid why and to give yourself that kick up the backside.
And a bit of
make it
momentum.
happen. Yep, absolutely. With the momentum, there's no change in direction, there's no nothing, there's just staticness.
For somebody that's maybe wanted to change their job for 10 years and constantly talks about it, but there's a story why they don't. But then suddenly they find that the company they're working for is going to go bust. They suddenly find the ability to change job because the why has suddenly become really quite strong.
I know what I'd change.
What?
About me. This is probably a bit egotistical, but when people tell me that they have an issue, I have a feeling I need to step in and fix it. And in reality, what I'm doing is, firstly, you're kind of making them feel like a passenger in their own life if you keep stepping in and fixing things. And I take on other people's problems. And then in reality, when you step back, they're exactly where they are. They like to moan about it, but they're where they are by choice. They've had multiple opportunities. You give them every choice. But they're not their choices, and they're in the place that they choose to be. They just like to have a bit of a moan or whatever.
So in life, if there's a breakdown, we have the AA, the RAC, Green Flag, and now Ian Young.
Yeah, in our age, the fourth emergency service, Dad.
I can really resonate with that because when somebody tells me something they're going through, my brain immediately gets to work of how can I help and how can I fix this for them. Yeah. And I always thought, actually, that's a really good thing to do, but actually it's not, because sometimes you're robbing them the opportunity of growth and learning, and they don't actually want it fixed, they just want to be heard.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And actually, it consumes a lot of energy fixing stuff for people, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And the amount of energy I've spent on that time, money, energy, to no positive effect, really. I wish I'd spent that time, money and energy on myself and the people that really need my affection or want my time, i.e. my family, or close friends, not people that it kind of means nothing. It actually feels like a bit of an inconvenience. Or
I can. So do you think, to kind of wrap this episode, that when you think about changing everything, starting all over again, whatever it is, that feeling that you get that holds you back, that feeling that you sense is going, stop, come back, don't do that, that's full of danger, that feeling is actually telling you, you're probably right. You need to lean into that feeling, lean into the resistance and the anxiety, rather than leaning away from it.
Yeah.
Because actually that feeling is the only thing getting in the way of the life you truly deserve.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, discomfort.
Discomfort, yeah.
Yeah, with change comes discomfort.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's quite a good conversation. I kind of liked the way that's gone. It's never too late. It might be a bit harder through various life reasons, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. And if something inside you still wants change, then maybe change isn't done with you. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks very much for watching and listening, and we look forward to catching you in the next episode of Tickety Boo.
If you or someone close to you needs to access mental health support, please contact your GP, or if it's out with normal office hours, get in touch with NHS 24 on 111. Alternatively, contact the Samaritans on 116 123. All calls are free of charge from any phone. You can also find more support information on the Tickety Boo website, TicketyBoo Podcast.co.uk.